is a trail we haven't did.
So today we are climbing Bluff Mountain in Virginia. And this particular hike is not super hard per se, but it is about 2 miles from the bottom to the top on the Appalachian Trail. We gain about 1,400 feet of elevation, so about 700 feet per mile. So it's pretty good steepness. And the thing about the first quarter mile of this hike is it's a basically constant uphill. So I'm starting on that now. We've got our little 2-year-old down here, hiking on his own for now. Gonna see if he can do this first quarter mile on his own before I load him into the carrier. And today we brought along the DJI Osmo Action 3 on our hike. Gonna see how this camera does. So the biggest obstacle of today's hike is the steepness. It's gonna be fun. Really steep here.
You're on camera.
The biggest challenge of this hike is probably for our 2-year-old. It's a pretty steep climb for him, but he's taking it one step at a time with his mom's help before I pull him up on my back for the rest of the hike soon. This guy is a serious hiker. He moves fast. Yeah, this first quarter mile on this hike is brutal because a lot of times when you're starting off on a hike, it's kind of nice to ease into it. But this one, it's just up, up, up. And that quarter mile feels more like a mile because of how much up it is. It's just so persistent and steep. So the initial ascent is finally over. This guy, it's tough for him as a 2-year-old doing that steep of an ascent. So naturally, I had to load him onto my back. Our pack is extra heavy today because I have extra water. So today I'm carrying about 60 pounds on my back. So I really feel it down in those knees. Fabulous workout. So we've come up the first ascent, come to this hard T. There's an AT shelter down that way, but we're gonna continue on the Appalachian Trail up this way. So the nice thing here is it does level off for a while. And by level off, it's still going uphill, but compared to that initial ascent from the valley down there, this is much less steep. It's far more reasonable, not super steep gains, so. And actually there's a spot up here where we actually go downhill for a little bit. But what we lose going downhill, we definitely have to gain back going uphill to the final ascent. For a while here, we walk through a lot of rhododendron and mountain laurel. And this usually tends to peak later in May and June with the white and pink flowers. So right now, there's not a lot of flowers on them. There are some, but it's kind of neat. You're kind of like going through a tunnel here with all of those.
I love going through that tunnel, Mom.
You can kind of feel the extra oxygen boost when going through all those plants too. So I think the biggest challenge about today's hike is that it's actually quite sunny and quite warm. It's not really humid, but the bright sun beating down on you without a lot of a breeze, it does make you feel a lot warmer, especially when you're going up, up, up. And in my case, when I have 60 pounds on my back today. So I think that's the biggest challenge about this hike, but I love it. And the views at the top are gonna be incredible. So we've got our final summit in sight now. If you look over this way, you can see it right up there. That's the point we still have to get to. So interestingly, the trail gets quite rocky here and it goes downhill a little bit. This is the spot I mentioned earlier. So we're gonna go downhill for a little bit, but then everything we lose, we have to gain back to get up to there. I always like it when the summit's in sight though, because you have a focus point at the end of the hike to focus on. So when I'm climbing that summit, what I like to focus on is seeing the blue sky through the trees at the top, because it's not a cleared summit. It kind of is, like there's a patch of grass up there, but most of it still has tree ring surrounding that. So from our vantage point, it looks like there's trees on the top because we're kind of climbing up the side spur of that mountain. So what I always look for is the blue sky through the trees where you can see the sky and it's not ground, because that's when you know you're getting close to the top. All right, we've reached the bottom of the downhill. We're in a gap right now. And now we're gonna begin the final ascent up to the summit of Bluff Mountain. There's actually a little bit of a breeze through this gap here. It feels really good. So I'm hopeful when we get to the top of Bluff Mountain that there might be a good breeze up there. Today's definitely one of those days where you want a breeze. Now, one thing I like about this part of the trail is we go under a lot of these dark pine trees. And it's pretty neat because there's a few spots where the sun hits through, but for a while here, you're in a lot of shade and it's kind of a dark forest area, which I really like. It's enjoyable. Another steep ascent. We're getting real close. Still got a little ways to go. So this part of the trail is always memorable because you may not be able to tell on here, but we're actually going up fairly steeply. But if you look up there, it's just straight. Whoever did this part of the Appalachian Trail, they stopped believing in switchbacks here for a while because it just keeps going straight up and there are no switchbacks. That's the part of it we've already come up. It just continues on like this for probably about a quarter mile. So it's tough. This is probably the toughest part of the hike. It's soon before you get to the top, but this is a spot where it would be easy to give up and turn around if you didn't know the top was coming soon. So what we're gonna do right here is we're gonna round a bend to the right, and then we're gonna go up to these trees for a while, but it's a short while. It kind of makes you think you're not there yet. It makes you think it's a false summit. But if you look ahead, what I was saying earlier, you can see a lot of blue sky closer to ground level through the trees. And that's how you know you're almost there. So once you get to the summit, there's some concrete remnants. There used to be a fire tower up here on the summit of Bluff Mountain. And the views up here are fabulous. So this is looking west. And down there, that first little town in the valley is Buena Vista, Virginia. I would pronounce it Buena Vista, but the locals call it Buena Vista. And then That's looking out toward West Virginia that way. This is looking back toward the way we came. This is north on the AT. This is looking back to the east. So the east also has great views as well. This is looking back toward Tobacco Row Mountain, and that's looking over like toward Charlottesville that way. Lynchburg's down here, and then this way is looking south on the AT. And down here are some great hikes, and the James River Face Wilderness is down this way as well. It's also a fabulous place to hike on the AT. Little 1-year-old loves getting out of the carrier. So now that we're at the top, it is snack time. So we're gonna have snacks, kids are gonna have snacks, and we're gonna enjoy the views up here for a little while. The views are incredible, love it. Oh yeah, and there's one other thing I need to show you up here. So after you get to the summit, if you keep going south on the AT, over here there's a little marker. This marker has some history behind it. So back in the late 1800s, it's kind of a sad story. 1891 to be precise. This is the exact spot little Oddie Klein Powell's body was found April 5th, 1891, after straying from Tower Hill Schoolhouse November 9th, a distance of 7 miles. He was age 4 years and 11 months. There's a permanent marker that they put here in place to honor him. All right, it is time to head back down the mountain. So we've got about 2.5 miles back to the car where we started. It's mostly downhill, though that one spot that was downhill on the uphill, we have to go uphill now on the way back. But my pack is a little bit lighter because we ate some food and we drank some water. So instead of 60 pounds, it's probably more like 55 pounds now. So that's workable. We can work with that. So we've got one brief uphill on the way back. It's this rocky spot where it of course was downhill on the way up. It's not too bad though. After going down those steep downhills, it kind of feels good to the knees to get a little bit of uphill again. So I don't mind a little bit of that. And then after this, we go kind of level, just slight downhill. And then it's gonna be a real steep downhill for the final quarter mile, because that's where we had that really steep uphill on the way up. All right, it's time for the final descent. So we've come to the shelter sign, which is where we come to that T in the trail again. So shelter sign is right there. Down there is the punch bowl shelter, and there's actually a small pond down there by that shelter. It's a rather nice shelter. I've stayed there before. So we came down from this way. Very steep little descent there. And our little 1-year-old just woke up. She was taking a nap, but she just woke up. She's probably hungry again. The good news is we're only a quarter mile from the car. And it's downhill. So we're gonna start that downhill right here. And you know you're getting close to the parking area because it's on the Blue Ridge Parkway. And you can hear some traffic down there in the Blue Ridge Park area right now, including some motorcycles. So it's when you know you're getting real close to the end of the hike. The one thing I forget sometimes is just how tricky it can be coming down these steep slopes, especially when you have a lot of weight on your back. That's a big step, isn't it? He's great with the slopes. He likes jumping down all the obstacles he can find. But I have, you know, this weight on my back that kind of pushes me, so I have to be careful, especially when it's that real dry, sandy, gravelly type stuff. Sometimes it's like walking on marbles. I've got a lot of years of practice and I've done thousands of miles of hiking, but this terrain can be some of the trickiest. Some of my favorite to hike on is lava rock in Hawaii, because that lava rock is really grippy. Like, it's not gonna go anywhere on you. Your footing is very firm on it, so I like that, but it does wear out hiking boots and shoes really quickly when you hike on the lava rocks. My hiking boots on this type of material, they last for hundreds and hundreds of miles. Got just a few more steep little step downs here. And we're gonna be crossing the road. Crossing the road's a little tricky here because there's kind of a corner above you and below you. So once you start crossing, you kind of basically have to run across the road. It's a 45-mile-per-hour speed zone, but you know, you still gotta move fast because there's not much visibility either way. But it has been an incredible hike. This one is tougher than I remembered. It's been a while since I've done this hike. And that 1,400 feet of elevation gain, you really feel it, especially when you have extra weight on your back. So I enjoy the challenge of it. I'm gonna go have a big meal now to celebrate the hike. And tonight, I will sleep the best I've slept since I last did a hike. All right, road crossing.